Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And I am seeing you once again with lesson 5 of Business English. In previous 4 lectures, what we have done so far, we have discussed in detail what are the basics of communication, what are the basics of business communication, and we talked about the basic details of the communication process and all the agencies and participant which play active role in making this process successful or unsuccessful. And we talked about all these aspects in detail, looking at the limitations and the potential problems that any participant of this communication process can come across. This lecture, lecture 5, is going to be particular in nature as we are going to discuss business communication as far as its definition is concerned, what are the purposes that business communication specifically address, what is the importance and significance of business communication, how many types of technical documents in business are written, what are these types of documents. We may talk about in detail business letters, then its nature, purpose, parts, style and punctuation, format. And if we get time, we'll move on to our discussion pattern, applying 7 C's of writing skills that we discussed in lecture 4 on the letter format of a technical document. And like always, we will definitely, inshallah, get into our language expansion activity and our listening activity. So this is the agenda for today's class. Let's start with it and see what we have to explore. Well, so far you must be wondering if this is communication, if this is written communication, if this is verbal communication, if this is the communication process. Well, what is difference between communication and business communication? Or maybe, what defines business communication appropriately? Well, here you are. Business communication can be written, oral, or visual. It can be in any form. Wherever you are sending a message to a receiver, you have a message coded in some kind of medium through some channel you are sending it. It is communication taking place. And if your intention is business oriented, if you have your intention is the intention has this business background, then this communication will become business communication. Business writing is composed in and for the workplace. That is understood that wherever this professional communication will take place, professional correspondence will definitely become part of it. And this way, business writing is composed in and for the workplace. Business writing is a significant factor in work experience for a variety of reasons. So, if this is how we can define business communication, what is the purpose of business communication? Alright, business writing, and here I am specifically talking about written communication in business. Business writing serves valuable purpose in the workplace. This word valuable needs your attention, because you see that all the time when we are in business, we are communicating. People who are approachable to see in person, face to face, people who are not approachable to see in person, face to face, we are communicating with both types of parties. However, there are some few things that can be done when we are talking to people in person. However, there are other things that have to be done in black and white, and there are reasons behind. In lecture 4 we discussed the reasons for formal or informal communication, communication that is done through oral formats and verbal formats, what can be the reasons behind, which one should be preferred in what kind of situations, and how do I make my decision that this has to be written communication then spoken. What are those factors that enable me to decide whether I should go for an email, or I should probably give a phone call, or maybe I should go in person and talk to the individual. So we are talking about the valuable purpose of business writing. It is intended to communicate to a specific audience for a specific purpose. Now, two more terms that would demand your attention. First of all, what do I mean by specific purpose? My purposes are always specific. If I list them down, they are either to inform or to persuade. There are two main purposes in business writing: either to inform or to persuade. Now, recall any business correspondence that you have ever come across. Let it be a letter of sick leave, letter of agreement, letter of thanks, letter of invitation, or a proposal that you might have written, or your proposal you might have accepted, or a report, an informal one or a formal one, or you might have written a manual or designed some instructions for something. Any kind of written communication that has a professional purpose behind it has either of these intentions embedded. Either you are giving some information, it is informative in nature, or you are taking some information, or you are convincing audience, persuading them to take some action, to do some action. Let's talk about a sick leave. What you are doing in your sick leave? You are informing, telling your employer or your boss that you are not feeling well and you need a day off, and convincing him or her that you should be granted this leave. So the third category emerges from here, that is having both of these intentions together. So one purpose is to inform, second is to persuade, and the third is having both of them together. As I have given you a very simple example of a sick leave letter. Over here, you're not only informing, but you are convincing, telling the person that this is the reason you will not be able to come, and on the basis of this you should be granted a leave, a day off. This same is the case with the report. If this report is only to inform somebody of your progress, this can only be informative report. However, if this report has to do something with some kind of change you intend, or some kind of proposal that you plan for future, to bring in something or to take something out, you are preparing ground by presenting the information to convince the doer to take some action, or to allow you to take some action. So you are informing as well as persuading. Okay, so this was all about specific audience. So these are the purposes that are there whenever we are doing technical writing and whenever we are doing business writing. Now, let's have a word about specific audience. What do I mean by specific audience? And how do I know that who are going to be my audience when I'm writing? Well, yes, most of the time, when you are doing technical writing, when you are doing business writing, you know who are going to be your audience. If I'm writing a leave application, sick leave application, I know my audience is either my employer or my boss or anybody who is there in charge of me, who is my immediate boss. Okay? If I'm writing a report, if I'm writing a proposal, if I'm writing a letter, if I'm writing manual, I have an idea who are my audiences. Sometimes audience is very clear, sometimes audience is not very clear, but they are there. Okay, for example, if I'm writing a manual, right, and I am thinking who is my audience. A manual is an instruction book. that I write for the users to go through a new kind of product that they come across. Suppose that I am a manufacturer of a beauty soap, or rather a beauty cream, that is night cream, and it's a new product in the market, and I write a manual for it. Now, how do I know who is going to use it, who is going to be my audience? Well, think about it. You know who is your audience. A beauty cream is a product specially made for either unigender, or it's for all genders. Okay, either it's for male or for female. I decide that my beauty cream is only for female, so I specified my gender. Now, is it anti-aging cream? Is it a cream to be used for teenagers? Is it a cream used for adults? Is it a cream for children? No, my cream has special ingredients that are suitable for people who cross the age of 25 and getting into their 30s, and it's an anti-wrinkle cream. So probably I would say that the age group my cream addresses starts from 25 and any age after 25. So see what I'm doing, I'm specifying my audience. Now, do I have any particular things to cater to the climate? Because creams, beauty creams, the moisturizers that we make, we manufacture, they have to do a lot with climate and environment of the place where the people are using them. So yes, my moisturizer, my cream is specially made for people who live in who live in some humid weather, hot and humid weather. So looking at hot and humid weather, probably I can target my audience in Asian country and in the countries where I have this kind of climate. So let's say I am targeting 10 different countries when I'm going to launch my product. So 10 countries, inside 10 countries I have option. My audience are people who are 25 plus and all the females. So this is my audience. Now skeleton is developing. Now, if I'm writing a manual, is my product only serving educated people? No. Anybody who has money, who can buy the product, should buy it. I have nothing to do with people who have money or who are educated or not educated. So am I going to take care of this phenomena when I'm going to design my manual for it? Because manual is the business writing. It's a technical document that I am designing, being a business writer. Okay. Now, I need to look at the aspect. All the people who are going to use my cream may not be educated and may not be monolingual. Or may not have even enough education to read the instructions. So first of all, I'm going to take care of the point that if I'm targeting 10 countries, I'm targeting their languages. So my manual should have at least major languages covered which are spoken in these countries. Then it has to have something. All the manual should be translated in English because that's lingua franca of the world right now. And then I may have, if it's a Pakistani product, I may have one translation of the whole manual in Urdu. So I may minimum target 3 languages: language of the producer, language of the consumer, international language, and the particular languages of the consumers. Okay, all right. Now, but what about those people who cannot read language at all? I need to include visual language, graphics, pictures, illustrations, instructions in graphics. So people who cannot read, just looking at the picture will get to know how to use the product. Do you understand the point? what I'm doing right now, I'm specifying my audience. And that is the very quick brainstorm that I could do to specify my audience. It's a proper procedure that goes from one step to another. And once you go through this procedure, you can have more appropriate specifications of your audience. And then once your audience is decided, once your purpose is decided, it becomes easy for you to mark down your objectives that you want to achieve. Only when you mark your objectives down, you will be able to find out what are the ways to achieve my goals. And then you will embed those things into your writing, into your product. And by product here, I mean the technical document that you are going to use, that you are going to write. And then once it's written, then it goes for first draft of writing, second draft of writing, third draft of writing. These are stages of writing or designing a technical document. That is going to be our part of our following discussions of some following lectures. The steps in writing. So when it goes through all these stages and it is done with proofreading, then the technical document is ready to be sent for a larger audience to be read by. So I hope these points are clear to you now. And if a document has gone through all these stages and careful consideration, you can understand how valuable this document is and how valuable this effort is, because it's going to not only inform but persuade hundreds of thousands of millions of consumers to buy that product and use that product. And if it's faulty, if it has problems of any type, then look at the consequences. This project may be a lost project, and no matter how good the product is, if it is not properly designed to inform the audience and convince them to use it, you will be a loser. You get my point? All right, moving on. The importance of business writing, as I have in the previous slide, when I was talking about the valuable message, valuable product, written product, and specific audience, specific purpose, I have referred to significance of writing a technical document, a business document. However, to make it very simple for you, it is important to success in business. If you are not a good writer, no, you're not an effective writer, business writer, it is very difficult for you to survive in the business world. It lets you conduct business, do business, earn business, and earn success. It takes a lot of time. It costs the company, but it reflects your interpersonal communication skills. It reflects your professionalism, and it often involves teamwork. Business writing often involves teamwork. However, it's not that it cannot be done individually, but it is preferred to be done in team, because you are in better position to look at different angles, incorporate them, and produce a collective kind of product that is going to address to multiple audience, multiple types of audience. All right, this was a very brief introduction of business writing, business documents, and technical writing. Now, we are moving on to see what are these technical documents in business that we need to really learn if we have to be in business, if we have to do the business, conduct the business. Well, there are a few which are very important, and you really need to pay attention to and put effort into learning how can you design such documents successfully. So let's have a look at the list. Well, the very first thing that is going to be there that we will be learning, we will cover basic writing skills to enable you to write. Now, write what? To write business letters, to write emails, memorandums, to maintain correspondence, write business meetings, minutes, resumes, reports, or presentations, interview skills, and listening for better business communication, as well as proposals for you to know how to propose a project in writing. All right, now I guess you're ready to start with your practice of learning how to write these technical and business documents. Let's start with letters today. So today's talk is going to be a comprehensive talk about letter writing, business letters. Before that we learn how to write a business letter, we need to understand what is a business letter, by the way. The business letter is the basic means of communication between two individuals or companies. Most business letters have a formal tone. However, it is not religious. It can have an informal tone as well, but most of them are written formally. What is this for? Why do we write business letter? Well, it is a letter written from a person to a company, a person to an individual, a company to a person, and company to an individual. Can be used for any purpose that requires written communication from an individual to a company, such as to a company, returned goods, complaint letters, leave letters, acknowledgement letters, thank you letters, invitation letters, resume cover letter, letter of transmittal. All these are basically different types of letters, and there are several types of letter. However, we may not be able to include all possible types of letter in our course, but we will try to incorporate as much as we can, at least all those major types that we come across in our everyday life, being a business person. Well, first of all, in the very beginning of the lecture today, as I discussed, that you need to be very clear about a few things. And among those few things, one very important aspect is knowing what is the purpose of your technical document. And here I am specifying you should know what is the purpose of a business letter if you are going to write one. You will write business letters to inform readers of specific information. However, you might also write a business letter to persuade others to take action. As I said, as I mentioned earlier, these are the two possible purposes behind writing any business document. To make it precise, if you're talking about business letters, either they are to inform or they are to persuade, or at times both of these purposes are there. They're not only informing, they are persuading too. So decide what purpose your business letter is going to serve. Business letters even function as advertisements many a times. You must receive, well, like look at banks. We all have bank accounts, so we know how these banks, they move onto their business. Whenever they launch a new facility for their customers, they send you a letter. Or if you are a property holder, and whenever your company would launch some kind of new facility or would launch a new product, new item in their product, they would give you a letter. Or if you are a phone holder, maybe you are using services of Mobilink, Uphone, and there are many services, mobile services. All the time you are receiving letters from them. So most of the times these letters are informative, sometimes they are persuasive, and sometimes they are not only informing, but they are persuading you to take some action, maybe to buy a new SIM, or maybe to buy a new package, that is offered by the company, or any other action that the company intends you to take action on. So once you are clear about the purpose of your letter, you should be knowing, what am I going to write in the letter? Well, that's the real business that we are going to learn today. before we get into it, we need to know what are some religious parts of a business letter that we have to take care of. Well, a business letter always has a date line, that is current date written out as month, day and complete year, like if it is October 28, 1978. Inside address, there is inside address line where name and address of the business to whom you are writing. For example, if I am writing this letter to you, your name and address, who is being addressed in this letter. Then salutation. Salutation is basically letter's greeting portion. You use the same name you used in the inside address, using dear Mr. Hamid, or dear Mrs. Sana, or dear Dr. Usman, and this is basically the greeting part of your letter. Then the body starts. However, sometime before the body starts, there comes in a subject line, and in the subject line you write the subject of your letter, and this happens in the formal letter format. Then you write the body of the document, body of the letter. At times this is 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, at the most there are 3 paragraphs. However, many of them move between 2 to 3 paragraphs, body of the letter. Then you have a complimentary closing, letters goodbye, using phrases such as yours truly, sincerely, best regards, warm wishes. So whatever your letter is about, accordingly you close your letter with a compliment. And then there is your signature line, writer's handwritten signatures, and writer's identification, your name, writer's type name and address, and along with name you can give your designation too. So these are the parts of business letters that you need to take care of whenever you're writing a business letter. Here you are, look at the screen. You have an example here. Look at the first part of the letter. This can be done either date here, 15 March 2005, or March 15, 2005. Then this is the inline address. Can you see that? Look, it's aligned from here. However, here the length of all the lines varies. Like this is finishing here, this is finishing here. So you cannot justify from here, but you can justify from the left. And then once the address is complete, you leave one space, one enter between the salutation and the inside address. And then you give your salutation, dear Ms. Jones. Look at the look at the colon that you have given. It's double dot that you give here. You can also give here a comma. However, formal letters, they prefer a colon. Then look at the body of the letter starts from here. This is the body of the letter. You can see that this letter has 2 paragraphs. Okay, you can see that this is justified from here. However, this is not justified from the right side. If you want to, you can justify it from the right side too. Okay, then you see when it finishes, you can notice one thing, that here the paragraphs are not indented. You understand the word indented? Like paragraph is not starting from leaving space for one word. It starts from right in the beginning. Okay, after I finish the body of the letter, you can see that again space and enter is given there, and then your complimentary close with a capital in the beginning letter, sincerely, a comma, and then you can have your signatures. Then you have your name, your designation, then a space. And if you have any enclosure, yes, this point we need to talk about. most of the time a letter does not go alone. There is some kind of attachment that goes with it. For example, if I am a company and you are employee and I am releasing your salary check, and maybe it's a contract salary, so you don't have a bank account with us, and I'm writing a letter of salary release for you and telling you that we are handing over this check to you. Along with that, a check comes in. So here you will be written whatever comes along with the letter, a check. Or if it's a cover letter for a resume, you can enclosure, in the enclosure you can write resume, because along with this letter you have your resume. So whatsoever accompanies this letter comes under enclosure column. So this is how your letter should look like when you are writing a business letter. Let's move on. Now, well, yeah, we have talked about the parts of business letters. We have talked about the format of business letters. Now, let's have some words about the style and punctuation. Well, there are 3 types of letter styles that are acceptable in business. What are they? Block style. All lines in the letter begin at the left margin, no tabbing or indenting. All lines in the letter begin at the left margin, no indenting. Modified block style, date line, complementary closing, and writer's identification begin at midpoint. Okay. Semi-modified block style, date line, complementary closing, and writer's identification begin at midpoint, and all body paragraphs are indented or tabbed over ½ inch. So these are 3 different ways of formatting your business letter. Can you identify which format is this letter? Yes, this is block style. There are 2 types of letter punctuation that are acceptable in business. Mixed punctuation, there will be a colon after the salutation and a comma after the complementary closing. So, which one is this? This is mixed punctuation. Can you see? You have a colon after salutation and you have a comma after complementary close. And then, open punctuation, there will be no punctuation whatsoever after the salutation or complementary closing. No punctuation, no tension. So it's an open punctuation business letter that is formal in nature. Alright, now let's talk about order and spacing. We have margin, we have inside address and then date, and salutation, we press enter for 2 times, body, the text within the paragraph and between the paragraphs, complementary closing, writer's ID, and we have spaces in between all of these areas. And I have given you the explanation and showed you how do you insert the due spaces. Now, let's talk about letter's appearance. Well, writer's company name and address should appear in the letterhead, so there is no need to type it again at the bottom of the letter. Writer's business title is usually keyed under the name. Reference initials are added, a DS, press enter 2 times after the writer's ID. These initials are of the person who types the letter, used to easily locate who typed the letter. Because at times in companies, someone who is a writer and someone who is the typist of that writer. So there are 2 people writing the letter. Enclosure or attachment mentions are, notations are added, a DS, below the reference initials. This is a spatial section that is only added if something else is either physically attached to the letter or accompanying the letter in the same envelope. I have already given you examples for that. Now, in the previous lecture, in lecture 4, we talked about 7 C's of business writing. And let's quickly revise. What are those 7 C's? Can you name them? Yeah, clarity, conciseness, correctness, courteousness, conversational, convincing, completeness. Okay, and conversational can also be consideration. Alright, now the point is, how do we apply these 7 C's on letter? But this is the same. Whatever we have discussed under these headings, you have to keep them in mind whenever you are writing any technical document, whenever you are composing any business document. These 7 C's have to be applied on writing. No matter what format you're picking, whether you're writing a letter, you're writing a report, you're writing a proposal, these are the differences of format, but these are the principles of style. 7 C's are principles of writing style that you have to always apply whenever you are composing any business document. Now, keep it short, cut needless words and needless information. That is rule number 1. Rule number 2, cut stale phrases and redundant statements. Rule number 3, keep it simple, use familiar words, short sentences and short paragraphs. Keep your subject matter as simple as possible. Use a conversational style. So this is a very quick checklist that I'm giving you, especially for letter, because that's a precise document. A proposal or an app or a report, it can be a longer document than a letter. However, since letter has a body of only 2 to 3 paragraphs, usually it's better to keep a very quick checklist that you can apply as far as writing style is concerned. Keep it strong. Use concrete words and examples. Keep to the subject. Keep it sincere. Be human and as friendly as possible. Write as if you were talking to your reader. And these were the very quick tips to apply the strategies of 7 C's, the writing rules of writing style, these which are 7 C's that you can apply on your text that you are giving in the letter. Now, after discussing the letter parts in detail, the portion, the format, and the rules of writing style, now we need to know some do's and don'ts of letter writing. Well, and they are particularly about the writing style, sentence structure and vocabulary. Well, do use plain English. Do not go for lofty and verbose kind of words. At times what students do, at times when a novice businessman would do, he or she would, write a letter and then would use right hand click on the mouse to look for the synonyms and blindly go for the synonyms. Okay? Just to make the letter sound very heavy and mature, you will go for heavy big words. No, don't do that. Until you are sure about a word, in which context this word can be used, do not incorporate that in your business letter, because a word that does not clearly convey the meaning is going to be ambiguous. And if you are going to have ambiguous information in the letter, that means information is not well received. Whatever you intended is not conveyed. And this results into failure of communication. Do you understand the point? So, as I mentioned in the previous lecture, always understand the word very well, whichever you want to use in your letter. Better to use this in context and learn this in proper context and then use it in your letter. Don't go for very sudden search of synonym and applying it without understanding it. Do write in active voice and use short sentences when possible. Well, this is very important. When you are writing in active voice, you are already cutting short on unnecessary lengths of sentences. So active voice is always it's subject, verb, object, order. Like Hamid writes a letter. Hamid writes a letter. A letter is written by Hamid. The object verb, subject, order is of a passive sentence. It's passive voice. And this is the active voice. Now, if I say Hamid writes a letter, how many words? 4. Or a letter is written by Hamid. It's a very simple sentence, but you can see the difference. Only by changing voice I can cut short on a word. And then second thing, how to make my sentence clear. You know that we always have in the beginning of a paragraph we always have a topic sentence, we have a subject sentence. In the same way, each sentence has a topic word that is a subject. So who is doing what? If my intention to tell that Hamid is the one who is writing letter, that Hamid should be my subject. So making it very clear, I need to have subject in the beginning, and that means I need to use active voice. So the reason of selecting between whether I should use active voice or passive voice primarily lies in the fact, what do I want to mention? Do I want to mention the doer who is doing the action, or I want to mention what is being done? So if I intend to highlight the doer and I want to bring him in the flashlight, that means Hamid is writing the letter. It's Hamid who is doing action. So Hamid is in the limelight. Hamid is my subject of the sentence. However, in situation when my concern is not who is writing the letter, my concern is what is being written. So my subject will change here and this will become letter, because letter is the letter should be subject of my my sentence. I want to bring this in the limelight. I'm not concerned who is writing. So I will say a letter is written, or the letter is written. That means I want to tell the writer about the letter, not who has written this. So automatically this will become my subject. So I would say always go for active voice and use short sentences. However, the selection between voice, whether it should be active or passive, primarily lies in the fact what is going to be the subject of your sentence. What do you want to bring in the limelight? And you will decide your subject accordingly. All right, moving on with the next thing. Do use everyday words and avoid technical jargons. Again, I think I can connect this point with the very first one. Use plain English, English that is understandable by people, because at times you don't know how literate your audience is. Again, I will go to the very first slide that we discussed about knowing your audience, specific audience. For example, if I'm a bank and I'm writing a letter to my customer. Now I have all types of customers in my bank, no matter how educated they are. Anyone who would have money would open up an account, no matter whether the person is educated or not educated. When they do business, they need an account. So if I'm writing a letter to an account holder and my aim is to inform him about his current status of income status, and to tell him that how much money has been deducted as income tax, I will be using very plain language, active voice, short sentences, everyday words, letting him know that this is the income tax deduction from his monthly income that he generates. Because knowing that maybe the reader on the other end is going to be a very a simple graduate, or maybe some intermediate, or maybe some matriculated person who does not know technical jargons. And nobody will open up a dictionary in the middle of the day and will go and read it and then understand it from the dictionary. So if your letter is not clear, people may postpone understanding it. They may, okay, I'll look at it in the, at night when I get free after dinner to see what it really means by that. So do not let your reader postpone your message. So make it crisp, short, and clear. All right. Do use list to present complex materials. All right. For example, if I'm a bank and I'm sending some details regarding what has been the transaction recently in your account, and I'm giving a record of last 6 months. Instead of writing a paragraph, it will be advisable if I make a table where I talk about different months in rows, then different dates in rows, and then I talk about the money that has been money transactions, if I could receive any money or could draw any money from my account. So I'll be making different rows and columns to clarify the picture, right? So instead of giving a paragraph, if I give this information in a table format, it'll be easy to go through, easy to understand and comprehend. So try always to present complex materials into simple, in simple ways to enhance the understanding, enhance the assure that to have this assurance that your idea is crossed, your message is received. Do select the words you see very carefully. Well, this is the same thing that I talked about. Use of synonyms. If you are using some, please be careful. Do use a strong organizational strategy, very important. Your letter has to be, your document has to be organized. Now, there are two types of organization. External and internal. Now, what do I mean by external organization? By external organization, I mean the formatting. Like I talked about the letter, that a letter has these body parts, and these are the portions, like you have greetings, you have inside address, you have body of the letter, you have closing, you have salutation, you have date. All these are parts, and they have a particular organization. You cannot give your salutation before your inside address. Salutation will have to be there after the inside address. So you have to follow the external organization. Then you have to write the body of the letter into paragraphs, and make sure that your paragraphs are giving one idea at a time. And this is the same you do with the external organization. However, external organization has to do a lot with the way you are producing your idea into converting your ideas into your words. Like, am I writing short sentences? Are all these sentences connected with each other? To build up that connection, am I using linking words? Am I using cohesive devices? Am I using directional devices? And am I giving reference of list to my audience? Like if I'm talking about some event, am I telling firstly, secondly, thirdly? Or if I'm concluding, I'm using in a nutshell, or in a conclusion, or to summarize. So I need to make sure that I have these cohesive devices, these transitional devices inside my text to steer my reader to smoothly go through the text to read and understand. This is called internal organization. All right, we will talk about this in detail with some example. All right. Don't make grammar or usage errors. Well, I hope you are aware of mistakes and errors. However, with this, although you go through a process of writing when you are writing a document, you brainstorm about the ideas. Writing has stages. Before that, we will talk about writing has 3 stages. 1, 2, 3. It's called draft, plan, write, and 4th stage is rewrite. Now, the first stage is where you think about the idea, think about all the possible things that you have to write in, and draft a kind of list of points that you need to write in any kind of document. Let's say if it's a letter, what are the things I'm going to write, and you plan who is going to be my audience, what kind of language I'm going to use, what are my I would call them the topic words I'm going to use in my letter. If it is about acknowledgement, if it is about thank you, if it is about invitation. All right, you think about the purpose. Am I going to inform them, or I'm going to persuade them, or I'm going to do both of these things together? So all these decisions are made at the drafting stage. Once it is done, you move on to planning stage, and you plan your letter, that I'm going to write this letter to this kind of audience, I will use this language, this is going to be the formatting of my letter. Letter is drafted, the drafting stage is basically drafting of idea. All right, and this is planning stage is drafting of your letter, first letter draft. Okay, some people do it, they plan first, then they draft, and then they write. However, it's more or less the same thing when you are at this stage. Then they write the first draft of letter. Sometimes they need to write the second draft of letter. In 2 drafts, they compose their writing, and then they bring it for final proofreading and rewrite if there is something that has to be rewritten. At this stage, when you are done with your second draft and you are going for your rewriting, is the point where you have to take care and see if you have made any grammar mistake or language usage errors. Now, with the advent of technology, this step has been made very simple and easy. You can always check with computer mechanically for grammar and spelling mistakes, and most of the things can easily be caught there and corrected too. However, human proofreading is always valuable, because a machine cannot use its the background knowledge that we being human beings can use to understand why this grammatical structure or a particular word has been used here. Moving on to the next point, don't use cliches or worn out phrases. Please don't use cliches in business writing. Always, avoid cliches or worn out phrases. Don't use obsolete or a pompous language, because it seems more professional if you're not using obsolete language. Well, I will give you examples of all these things, but for now it was to make you enlist all these things that you are going to do and you are going to avoid in writing letters. I hope this is clear, and we can move on. Now, what we need to talk about here is the tone of the letter. Okay, let's talk about the tone of a business letter. It says, do use a reader-centered tone. You remember we talked about you approach and we approach. Do not use you if you are to, give a polite expression in your letter, until your you is user-centered or reader-centered. Do use a business-like conversational tone. But conversational, I do not mean to say use an informal style. Conversational tone mean making your reader comfortable with what you are saying. Do not make it too bookish to understand. try to make your conversational tone a comfortable tone of whatever you are saying, because it should make your reader feel as if you are, talking in a formal settings. Don't be too familiar with your audience. Well, remember to keep some distance. This is a business relationship. Don't get over ambitious in developing relationship with your customers, because after all, you are in business. Don't use humor unless you know exactly what you are doing. What is funny to you might be an issue of the highest seriousness with other people. You are dealing with different people, different cultures, different societies, so be very careful when you are using humor. Don't preach, don't teach in your letters. If you have to tell your audience obvious information, put it in the middle of a paragraph and watch how you word the message, because a direct preaching, a teaching letter can offend your consumer. Don't brag. It's good to be confident, but don't carry it to an excess that it annoys the reader. Don't sound overconfident. All right. Now, persuasive letters. The purpose of a persuasive letter is to sell your idea to someone. You are trying to get them to do something they may not want to do. So, for persuasion, to convince somebody, what can we do? We can use an AIDA formula. What is this AIDA formula? AIDA formula is AIDA. First paragraph should catch the attention, attention. Second paragraph should entrust the reader, catch the interest. Third paragraph should provoke his or her desire. And fourth paragraph should, provoke them, trigger them to do, to take some action. And this make your AIDA crown, AIDA formula to convince or persuade reader. It's a 4-step strategy of writing a persuasive letter. Now, proofread before you print. This is very important. As I've talked about the stages of writing, this is the final stage. After that, you print your letter. However, never ever skip this stage. Always proofread your letter before you print. It is also good to have someone else proofread your work. I will count off for spelling and grammar mistakes. I can show you a business example of a business letter. So we have discussed so far. In a nutshell, business letters in English are basically purpose-oriented, audience-specific, and they are valuable products that business writers produce. Business letters are formal, paper communications between to or from businesses and usually sent through the post office or sometimes by courier. Business letters are sometimes called snail mail, in contrast to email, which is faster. Okay, now who writes business letter? Once again, most people who have an occupation have to write business letters. Some write many letters each day, and others only write a few letters over the course of a career. However, all people who are in the business, they have to get into business writing. Business people also read letters on a daily basis. Letters are written from a person, group, known as the sender, to a person or group known in business as the recipient, receiver, recipient. All right. Here are some examples again, a refresher of sender and recipients, like a business to business, business is sender, business is recipient, business to consumer, job applicant to company, citizen to government official, employee to employee, and staff member to a staff member. So these are the possible potential senders and recipients. And this was all about today's subject-specific talk. Now let's quickly go into our language expansion activity and look at the tip of the day. We are going to talk about, what do you know about changes in the aviation industry? Or what do you know about the changes in the transport industry in your country, in your region, in your city? If I am talking about aviation industry in particular, I can ask my question, are things improving for aviation industry? Small airlines, large airlines, passengers, the environment, and the airline staff. And when I'm thinking about these ideas, I can put down my ideas into numbers, and I can talk about, yes, small airline is improving as I have noticed, or no, small airlines are not improving as I have noticed, or it's a recent research. And then you compare them with the large airlines. You can talk about the passenger satisfaction. You can talk about the environment if you have ever traveled, or if any of your friends or relatives traveled. And you can talk about the airline staff if you have experienced it personally. This drill will enable you to talk about things that are around you, the businesses that you get benefited from, and how to analyze things logically, present your ideas with reason to convince your listener for whatever point of view you carry. This was all for today, and let us quickly now revise what we have covered so far. Okay, what we covered in our today's talk, we talked about business communication, what defines business communication, purpose of business communication, importance of business communication, and the types of technical documents, business letters, the nature of business letter, purpose, part, style and punctuation, format, and application of 7 C's in business letter. We talked about some checklist points, do's and don'ts, then the AIDA formula of persuasive letters, how to proofread, who's and why's of business letters, and we had a very quick activity for language expansion. This was all for today's talk. I will see you in lecture 6 now. Until then, Allah Hafiz.